Michael, where are advisors most underprepared when it comes to tailoring or prescribing alternatives for their high net worth clients?
Yeah, think about the asset allocation aspect of that. So modeling your multi-asset class portfolio, where to put the alternatives into your common equity and fixed income allocations, and then think about sourcing the products, researching different private credit fund versus a private equity fund versus the various hedge funds. So that's a very kind of deep dive into sophisticated, time-consuming processes to do it right.
Can you talk about the demand you're seeing for evergreen funds and interval funds and all these alternative market assets? Because we're hearing a lot about them.
Yeah, we're seeing a ton of it at Envestnet as well. So, we have our private wealth strategy. It's just crossed $2 billion, launched a few years ago. Then the broader Envestnet tech stack is, north of $7 trillion. And we're pushing into development heavy for next year to make the interval fund part of our UMA chassis, which will, I think, be game changing when you think about kind of that $1 to $5 million kind of household and pushing into kind of your we call it our mid-tier millionaire, which is kind of 5 to 30. It's really going to unlock, private credit, which we're seeing a ton of demand for, infrastructure, and then private equity, and get that into kind of something we call personalization at scale.
Well, speaking of personalization, a lot of high net worth investors have concentrated stock positions. So in your view, there's lots of different ways to diversify around a concentrated stock position. In your view, what's the best way to do it?
It depends. I think there's a couple of different ways. So one way is to do it with a hedging perspective. So think of a kind of a hedged equities, option overlay. So you can look at a collar or an exchange fund replication. So take some of the downside of that security away. You do have some tax loss harvesting capabilities. I think a better way is to combine that with a direct indexing vehicle. So if you're able to carve off a piece of that concentrated security, fund a direct indexing account, put a tax optimization on the DI account, and then have a hedge on the actual position, then you kind of get the best of both worlds. So you have downside risk, which is hedged, and then you have the tax transition, tax overlay capability to kind of guide you on a years-long process to reduce the risk.
And the wealth actually might be concentrated not in a stock, but in a business. So when you speak about succession planning with a client, how do you structure those conversations? Or how should advisors structure them?
Well, succession planning, I think for a client becomes about wealth transfer. That becomes step-up basis. That becomes building the portfolio in a manner that will be a tax-efficient kind of, get ready for the estate transfer. Another angle to look at there too is what we're seeing in the wealth advisory space, the actual advisors themselves and their succession planning. And a lot of them are not prepared. And if you're kind of building your own portfolios, think about moving from a kind of, I'm a rep as PM, I'm building my own models, into I'm going to outsource. That creates a higher valuation for your business and gets it ready to be actually sold from an advisor perspective.
And then finally, you have Envestnet Private Wealth. So who are your target clients for Envestnet Private Wealth? So for example, high net worth used to be between 1 and 5 million. Now people say, maybe it starts at 10 million or 20 million. So what are the categories here and what are you doing for these folks?
Yeah, so we've got a few different ways of looking at it. I mean, from an advisor perspective, we're looking for advisors that embrace high net worth kind of easy button through our technology. So we've got a team of kind of CFAs that are going to run the proposal software for you, personalize, and then the actual clients themselves starting at 1 million in households. So we're kind of just at that lower end of what we call high net worth. So 1 to 5 is kind of our first tranche, and that's like get them into individual equities, fixed income securities, tax optimization, maybe direct indexing. And then we're doing a lot of business and we call it the mid-tier millionaire, which is in that kind of 5 to 30 tranche. And there you're starting to introduce private assets and hedge funds in the more kind of true illiquid state. Again, I mentioned that technology development we're doing for interval funds in the UMA chassis. That's going to end up powering both of those sleeves and make it a lot more scalable. So those are the way we kind of define it. Our target markets, kind of that 1 to 5 and then that 5 to 30.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on and talking about it.
You bet. Thank you.